item tonight, and well, you guys that are taking this are going to hate because Dan, I'm going to walk out in the crowd now because I'm ahead, and I'm going to ask you to hand these out because you're going to look on the screen there, but you can go home with these. It's a 2-page handout that we're going to go over. It is about our third agenda item tonight. And our third agenda and last item is an update and discussion on Northeast Quadrant Advanced Life Support, commonly known as NEQALS, and their coverage of emergency medical services, EMS, in Webster, in light of the 90-day notice that they issued to the town on December 29, 2023. And NEQAL's announcement on January 9th, 2024, that they will be reducing their staff and/or their rigs, I'll call it, their ambulances, as of Saturday, January 13th. That might be the longest agenda item I've written in 4+ years as a supervisor, but I figured that it needed to have that kind of detail so that people didn't call us once it hit the agenda and say, what is this going to be about? Now you'll also notice on the agenda that there's a resolution proposal. But before we move on to that resolution proposal, I think it's important for the town board. And certainly I appreciate there's attendees tonight. Everybody I think who's attending this has been at workshops before. So I don't think you have to remind you that town board workshops are not public hearings, they're not a chance, a forum for the public in attendance to take the podium. But that's why I wanted to hand these out to all of you. Take them home, do what you want with them. They'll be posted, I'm sure, Bridget, tomorrow on our social media and our websites for posterity. But simply said, the 2 pages, first of all, I got to say that anything that is a presentation on EMS in Webster, I can't seem to get anybody to want to present these things. And I realize it is a sensitive subject, and it has been for quite some time. It's like a hot potato. To be honest with you, I wish I wasn't presenting. But I'm just starting the conversation with what essentially is, I'd like to think, a fact-based timeline going back almost 2 months of the seminal moments, events, and that's page 1. Page 2 of this presentation is really broken into 4 categories. I'm going to focus on that. The 9/11 ambulance calls in Webster from December 30th, the day after the 90-day announcement, 90-day notice from NEQALS, up and through today. There's been 146 911 ambulance call dispatches in the town of Webster. Shouldn't surprise us, that's approximately 11.2 calls per day. We've been saying for quite some time now. Webster is about 330 ambulance calls a month, about 4,000 annually. NEQALS through the WEMS, the Webster Emergency Medical Services, has covered 124 of those, or 85%. The other 15% were picked up by mutual aid. Now, if you follow our board meetings last Thursday night, Glenn Becker and Dan Reardon from Penfield Volunteer Ambulance were gracious enough to give an update to the town board and to the community about how mutual aid works, and also give an update at that time of how many ambulance calls in Webster had been covered by our primary provider, NEQALS, and how many were mutual aided. And I think Dan and Glenn did a nice job of explaining how they're working with Ontario Ambulance and Adirondack Ambulance to be ready on call for mutual aid, understanding that once NEQALS gave that 90-day notice, that it's going to be a very dynamic 90 days. There's 50 employees over at NEQALS. They know that that notice takes out about 90% of their business that has been tied to Webster. Employees need to feed families. I don't know if they'll stay there for 90 days. The second component is kind of leads into this proposed resolution that's on the agenda tonight. That from January 13th, Saturday, through March 28th, which would be the 90-day notice time frame, the end of it, this resolution that's on the agenda tonight would essentially have West Webster's Fire District at Penfield Volunteer Ambulance be the primary in the 911 system, with WEMS NEPAL second, and if they can't do it, then mutual aid kicks in. Within that, Penfield Volunteer Ambulance would have a fully staffed, an EMT and a paramedic transport ambulance, or ambulances, at the Gravel Road Firehouse, a facility that was built by the West Webster Fire Department when they had ambulance service, so it has bays that are very specific to ambulance, so they can accommodate that. And obviously, from a geographical standpoint, West Webster is serviced better when you're staged out of Gravel Road for a call that's off at DeWitt Road than if the ambulance is coming from Jackson Road where the NEPAL's base is. It's just simple logistics and miles to drive and all that. The Northeast Joint Fire District, which essentially is east of Hard Road, I think, for the most part, WEMS NEPAL will be the primary because they still, even though they gave 90-day notice, they are still our ambulance provider, at least up till March 28th. And mutual aid would kick in thereafter if they can't cover that. We assume that WEMS NEPAL will have their base of operations on Jackson Road, is where they'll stage their ambulance or ambulance, and it's assumed they will utilize fully staffed EMT and paramedic transport ambulances, or the model that they traditionally use, which is a BLS transport ambulance with an EMT on board and a supplement of a fly car with a paramedic for any ALS-related calls. Now, I can't stress this next one enough. You will potentially see EMS on our town board agendas. You potentially could see it from now until March 28th. I can't tell you what's going to be on the agenda next Thursday for EMS because the one thing I'm expecting during this 90 days is the unexpected. And within expecting the unexpected, we're trying to get in front of this with Monroe County and New York State EMS governance to make sure we have flow chart scenarios. If this happens, how do we quickly do this? If this happens, how do we quickly do this? That's how you got to manage the 90 days. In parallel to that, as you'll see on the fourth highlighted bullet point down there, while we're in these meetings and conversations with EMS governance from New York State and Monroe County, we are trying to come up with the best plan for beyond March 28th. I can't stress this enough, that the compass of the decision-making by the town will continue to focus on what is in the best interest of approximately 330 citizens on average each month who require ambulance services in the town of Webster. The town has authority to take emergency measures outside the resolution process at one of these town board meetings. That is something that I would rather not do. I think there is something very good about coming to this boardroom, having 5-person votes on resolutions, having them live taped on Facebook and YouTube, having people be able to come in like there is about 8 or 10 people tonight to hear all this. But I cannot stress this enough. If things happen and we see on a day-to-day basis that it can cause risk to the health of our citizens by ambulance, rest assured we will enact those emergency measures in between board meetings. And I don't know if you call that Charlie non-pro-tunc, but we'll come to the next board meeting and try to explain as best we can why we did. So, I don't know, that's really, I don't know if you call that a presentation, but that's a synopsis of the 2 pages that you have in your hands out in the crowd. It's on the screen. It'll be out there on social media. And that is the best I could come up with for at least greasing the skids to conversation of the town board and or questions from the town board in advance of anybody making a motion on this resolution that is sitting on this agenda. So I will get off my soapbox, Councilman Taylor.
Well, we've had numerous discussions, and I think it was probably 2.5 weeks ago when I called you. We had a discussion with respect to we need to be proactive and not reactive. I'm very happy that you put together 2 meetings with officials from the state and the county, along with, an EMS chief and others to discuss just how we need to plan going forward. Especially, you look at January 9th was written down as far as that update goes, where, the email went out that we're going to reduce their existing 2 to 3 rigs a day to 1.
Yes.
So that immediately says, okay, I'm really glad that we are working proactively to make sure that the residents of the town of Webster are being serviced properly. It's very sad that it's come to this. It didn't need to happen, in my opinion. But we are where we are. We're going to move forward. We're going to have the best interests of our residents at the forefront.
I do want to say that I want to thank the Monroe County Health or Public Safety, and because in the meeting yesterday, chapter and verse, when you change a provider, it really takes about a week to get the paperwork through it and enact that. They understood the situation and they said we can get that done by midnight. 12 a.m. on Saturday the 13th, knowing that, we can see that Nequals, who is our provider, is cutting their rigs from 3 to 1. Simple math. We're just not going to be able to cover those calls. So I do give them a lot of credit for working with us on that to take a 7-day process, Charlie, that they said, you know what, we can get that done today.
I think it's also, things are need to be said with respect to the town of Penfield also. And the Penfield Volunteer EMS to meet with us, they have discussions, preliminary discussions, especially given this, what I would call an emergency situation. Okay. Just want to make sure we get
Well, this is some kind of hard decision you have to be made, and when your heart says one thing and your mind is set on another. But hopefully the right decision will help the majority and the good for our people in this community. And at the end, I just hope that everybody will find peace and care for one another. And it's for the best, for the people in Webster. That's what I hope.
Welcome to the board, Jen.
Well, there's a lot that's been going on here, and I'm doing my best to follow along, and I appreciate all of the information that I've been receiving over the past several weeks. Like Jenny said, nothing is more important. I think you said the same thing too, than the health and safety of the residents of Webster. I I know that I live on the east side of Webster. My parents are elderly and they live on the east side of Webster, so I have some tremendous concerns about the coverage with the announcement of the reduction in staffing. And I'm curious, it's peculiar to me why that's happening, or maybe why that change in staffing wasn't forthcoming to the town. It was, came through a different email that the town was informed of that change in staffing.
I can only speculate on an answer to that question, Jennifer, but, you know, I don't quite understand. Thank goodness we found out, you know, it was an internal email, and we found out and corroborated that, yes, New Falls has told their staff they're cutting down. I don't know, Charlie, is, from a legal standpoint, is the subcontractor liable to, or responsible to formally tell the customer that owns the municipal cabinet, is outsourced to them, that, hey, by the way, you should know that we're going from 3 rigs down to 1 rig, and that's going to have an effect. They have decided not to formally let us know, but there's an old saying, you know, other people's actions don't dictate our actions. When we got out of the meeting yesterday, Councilman Cahill was in on the meeting, Charlie, Janesi, our town attorney, with the state and the county. And Penfield Volunteer Ambulance was there also. Once we figured out that we think we should have West Webster go over Penfield Volunteer Ambulance per this resolution, we immediately let the New Falls board know that that was our intention. We gave them that notice immediately. That's, I think, how we have tried to operate throughout this process. New Falls, you know, I can't answer for that, Jen. The press conference on the 29th, we weren't made aware of it. So this is a different way of operating. But I like the way we operate. You know, and we shouldn't affect the way we operate based on the way other people operate.
So I appreciate that, and I appreciate the preemptive actions and the forward thinking of the work that John and you have done to make sure that the west side of Webster is covered, and with a reduction, at least we're covering a portion of Webster with a third of the staffing as opposed to all of Webster. So that should help, but definitely a very dynamic situation and a very critically important situation for all of us.
I will tell you this, Jen, is that 2 nights ago, my wife's business is in the village, so that is the east side of Webster. That is northeastern. And they had a situation in her business that necessitated an ambulance, and she said that the MEMS staff was phenomenal. Couldn't have been better. And Jen, I think you and I have talked about this. There is please do not, the WEMS, EMTs, and paramedics are excellent. They should not, they're not a reflection of how the board is operating at this time. They're professional. The EMTs and paramedics are doing their job. And I think that they will continue to do their job right up to the end of the 90 days. Like I said, I think we need to be realistic. I don't know if they'll be there for the 90 days. You have to feed your family. You don't, I gotta believe they're making moves now to look at other places to go to work.
Yeah.
And Councilman Cahill said something to me a week ago, I keep saying it, ambulances don't drive themselves. If there's no EMTs or paramedics that are employed by New Falls, I feel very comfortable that we have a plan. And like I said previously, if we have to enact that plan, we won't wait till next Thursday. at a board meeting. We'll enact that. So, I feel very good that we'll get through this 90 days and our citizens will be fine.
Just to follow up on your comment with respect to the crew that went to your West business, and they were not a reflection of the board. In my opinion, you know who they're a reflection of? In my opinion, was Chief Matt Boyd. That young man has poured his heart and soul out for 17 years with NEQALS. And as of last night, Matt is no longer with NEQALS. And this entire community and surrounding communities, in my opinion, owe Matt, not only Chief Matt Boyd, a great deal of gratitude and thanks, but by extension, his family. Because the amount of hours that young man put in, he was working 70 to 80 hours a week. He was backfilling as a paramedic to their contract in Richmond, which is an hour away from Webster. That's dedication. It truly is. He has done a tremendous job since taking over his responsibilities as chief, I believe about a year and a half to 2 years ago. He has taken, and we all remember what the percentage of calls that they were down to. It was in the 80s. And under Matt's leadership, he took it from the 80s to covering 97% of their calls. And you don't do that without a lot of work. Bringing a team of approximately 50 EMTs and paramedics together and working together, which is a very, very difficult thing. He built that team. He did. So, thank you so much, Chief Boyd, for your 17 years of service.
Well said. Patty?
How I could possibly add any comments that have already been said, but I do want to assure the public and anyone who may be looking at this on our website or is watching the meeting, any of you who have the handout in your hand, Tom did say this, but I want to underscore it, that Jen certainly said this is dynamic, but one of the things through your contingency plan for the 13th through the 28th is that we will be monitoring this daily. So I want everyone to know that this is probably the first thing that we wake up thinking about and the last thing on our minds every day.
Very fluid situation, for sure.
Well, like I said, who knows what the next couple months will bring as far as what topics will be discussed at EMS at board meetings, board workshops, what resolutions come into those things, those meetings. But for tonight, we have a resolution here. We usually don't do resolutions. We try to avoid them at workshops, but I think it's very apropos for the situation. And without, unless anybody has any questions or comments from the board, I'm going to make a motion naming Penfield Volunteer Emergency Ambulance Service, Inc., PVEA, as the responding agency for emergency medical services in the West Webster Fire District portion of the town of Webster as of 12 a.m. midnight on Saturday morning, January 13th, 2024.
Second.
Supervisor Flaherty?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman McCollum?
Aye.
Councilman